Okay.
All right, welcome to this week's edition of the Muslim Street. Uh, we are produced out of Accra, Ghana, by the Lance Scurv Show. I want to thank Lance for continue his dedication to the Muslim Street. And also, we're going to be joined by Art Mobley of Darfur 23, also a founding member of the National Association for Black Journalists, and also Dr. Viper Issa White, author of Blacklisted, The Price for Speaking the Truth. Everybody needs to get that book. I mean, it's a very good read. It speaks to this environment and era that we are in by the Zionist controlled press. We used to, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, say it was the Zionist controlled press. Now they even say it's the Zionist controlled press. I'm talking about the Zionists, right? They've swooped it all up, for themselves. And I think essentially, if we look at the landscape of social media, Facebook, Zionist, Instagram, also owned by Zionist, TikTok, the American version. I read, and you're not gonna believe this, Lance. I read the fine print on TikTok's rules to govern the community. One of the rules to govern community is that you can't talk about Israel. The other one thing, listen to this one. You can't talk about the replacement theory. You're going to get blocked. You know what the replacement theory is? That African people all around the globe, particularly on the African continent, are making more babies than the Europeans who are in a decline, i.e. Americans too, that's their cousins. And you can't even discuss that. They're going to block you. So literally that tells you who owns the place, right? X, the Muslim Street
Wow.
is on X, and we can go on and on and on and on with this stuff, man. We talked to this at Hammond. So the issue here that we have to begin to get our own message out. There was an incident that was catastrophic in terms of the attack on the African Liberation Movement that happened on December 25th, Christmas Day. And I'll read a commentary on this. Nigeria complicit in Christmas Day attacks. Make no mistake about it, and do not be deluded or confused. The U.S. military strikes on northern Nigeria on Christmas Day were a deliberate provocation. President Donald Trump tried to cover up the bombing, claiming that the missile assault was intended to hit ISIS, which we know was created by the CIA under the Bush-Obama administration and heavily funded. Forces alleged to be in that area, that ISIS was in that area. That's why he bombed them. In reality, the United States is preparing to attack targets in Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and other Sahel states to destroy the Pan-African freedom movement and interrupt the progress towards African solidarity and unification. The false narrative that there is a genocide against Christians in Nigeria is less evident than it is in places like the U.S. or Israel or Egypt, for that matter. This is provocative pretext on the part of the Trump administration to advance the same naked aggression we see in Venezuela. They are connected. The tactics are almost identical. Only here, the Trump administration is aided by weaker African politicians to attack the bold and the stronger states seeking African sovereignty over their own land and resources. And you always go back to that Uncle Tom theory on every level, right? They wouldn't have been able to come down, and the Portuguese, in particularly during the 15th century, come down to Africa and spread their wings and put us in chains and march us across the Atlantic Ocean for the next 310 years of slavery, had it not been, somebody working with them on the inside. So, Dr. White, let's start with you. Your perception of what happened vis-a-vis the opening monologue.
Well, thank you, Brother Malik, Brother Arthur, and Brother Lance. Assalamu alaikum. And first of all, I want to give salutations to all my brothers and sisters who is practicing Kwanzaa. And today is Yajima, Collective Works and Responsibility. And that's very, very important. We have to understand that Kwanzaa is not a Black Christmas and it's not Hanukkah. It's something that is cultural with the African American people. So, peace. Now, going to the original question, Donald Trump was looking for cover. All right. He's being beat over the head with the Epstein files. He was being questioned on issues of Venezuela. So he needed cover. What is that cover? One, we know that his MAGA base is evangelicals, Christians. They don't care nothing about Black people in Nigeria. However, if you can present an argument that Christians are being massacred, being destroyed, being killed, then the MAGA base will say, oh, for the goodness of Christ, we will support you. Now, along with this, it was also designed to get the Black community. Now, many in the Black community do not like President Trump for various reasons. However, 80% of the Black community, or maybe even higher, are caught up in the church, Christianity. So, therefore, if you, the thing that crosses race, that crosses ethnicity in the United States is their love for Jesus, their love for Christianity. So, therefore, if you can convince the African American community, the churchgoers, that listen, we have to defend Christians, we have to defend people who are worshiping our Jesus, they will align with the MAGA base, support President Trump on this. I would guarantee you that almost every Black church this morning have promoted this idea that, listen, we have to defend the Christian worshipers in Nigeria. All right. So that means, i.e., we may not like Trump, but we will support him. You can also see that it is visibly, the Black Congressional Caucus and others are visibly quiet on this issue. So now Donald Trump has set himself up as, check it out, as the great white savior of Christianity. All right. The great white savior, the Jesus, politically. And that is what he is using, and that's what he has done to cover his backside on other issues that's kicking his butt, and doing it on Christmas, the day that the Christians worship the birth of Jesus Christ. It was not an accident. So therefore, it was strategic, it was smart, and it was aggressive. Now, the other issue that's really sad about this was that the implication of the Nigerian government aligning forces with President Trump to attack people or their areas in their own country. I find this to be virtually ridiculous, sad, and reactionary against their own people. Now, note, Nigeria has the third strongest military in all of Africa, behind Egypt and behind South Africa. Remember also, a week or two earlier, the Nigerian military was used to put down a coup in Benin. So therefore, and they utilize a satellite system for the French. They utilize the support of Macron. So you're telling me that they can go to a foreign country to put down a coup, but cannot handle the so-called ISIS that's in the northern part of their country. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't line up. Another issue to remember is that it's not just Christians, so-called Christians, that's being hurt if this is the case, but the region is heavily infiltrated with Muslims. So therefore, Muslims will be hurt as well if there is attacks by ISIS towards the population in that area. So therefore, this whole issue that took place stinks. It stinks with the nuances of Trump and his administration, and that is collectively combined with Republicans and Democrats who are supporting this attack. It stinks with the Nigerian support of this. It stinks with the quietness of many other states who is looking at this. It stinks with the fact that even though Nigeria does not have an American base, but they're in cahoot with the American military and the American neocons on this. So all over, this stinks, it smells, it's rotten, and we have to question really not only the Trump administration, but the affairs of Nigeria, along with the affairs of others in the region, and the support of the activities from Europe, from the United States, in this type of action. That's my assessment.
Art Mobley, what is the big play here from the West?
Well, the West and the play from the West is the same as it's always been. They are attempting to completely subdue Africa, all of Africa, not parts. They want it subdued. They want it under their control. It's like it's their personal, private, exploitative picnic basket, so to speak. And they want Africa to remain in that condition. They don't want to change. They're not going to change. And they are not going to leave Africa alone. They are not going to allow Africans to have control of their own land and resources. They're going to do everything that they can to not only keep Africa suppressed, but they are going to try and keep Africa dominated by the West completely. That is not going to change. Africa is going to have to fight. The only way you're going to be able to deal with the oppression that Africans are feeling now, have felt in the past, and are going to feel going forward is we're going to have to kick some ass. We're going to have to get these people off of us. And unfortunately, it is going to be a struggle. It is going to be a violent struggle. And we have never shrunk from that reality. This is what Nkrumah was saying 70 years ago. He said Africa needs to band together, to consolidate their militaries, consolidate whatever land structures that are that have at least some freedom alliances, and then advance those and continue to grow those areas until Africa can defend itself completely from the outside, from anybody. That's what had to happen in China. That's what had to happen in Russia. That's what a lot of Europe did. Europe is consolidated, but they don't want Africa to be consolidated, and it's obvious as to why.
But the issue that we have, Brother Arthur, and I agree with you 100%. However, unlike the Chinese, unlike the Nigerians, unlike the people in Vietnam, and unlike many in Cuba and other areas, for whatever the reason, the Africans as a group do not have the stomach for that fight.
What makes you think they don't have the stomach? What makes you think they don't have the stomach? What makes you think they don't have the stomach? What makes you think they don't have the stomach? Africans are just like everybody else.
I will tell you how they don't have the stomach right now. All right? We go by the leadership. The leadership of many of the African states, have not condemned the attacks. At the second time, they're still allowing American military partnership that's taking place in Nigeria. We're still seeing that in Ghana, where the American military has taken over part of the airport. We're still seeing that throughout the area. It's one element to talk about it and to still have a theory about it. But in reality, they haven't illustrated the point that they have the stomach. They can stop it immediately. They can stop it by sanctioning, by saying, listen, we don't want you in here, but they still do it. They can say it very quickly. Our partner now is Russia and China. We don't need American partnership.
That's not true.
So
Africa is
therefore,
a
it has
non-aligned
to have a
continent.
strength.
Africa has fought for non-alignment for the last 70 years. They do not say they have partners in this country or that partner. Africa is a self-contained, self-sustainable continent that can do for itself. And we got to give them the chance. We got to support that as Africans in the diaspora, wherever we are. And we have to understand that this is a process. It's not something that we can just say exists in a snapshot of now. And Africa, therefore, is weak, and Africans can't do what everybody else in the world does on a daily basis. They consolidate, they understand. White supremacists understand.
How long did it take the Cubans to rebel against Americanism?
Excuse me, sir.
How long was that process? You had a person like Fidel Castro, along with Che Guevara.
I didn't interrupt you when you were talking, brother White. I didn't interrupt you when you were talking. Give me a chance.
I'm sorry, brother.
To say what I was trying to make some points, but jumped in. But
please forgive me, brother.
All I'm saying is that Africa has to have the chance to develop its own footing, just like the rest of the world. Africa has been on some serious exploitive efforts by Europe in particular. And it's been a really arduous, long couple of 100 years of that nonsense. But we see Africa coming out of that. We see what's going on from Sierra Leone all the way over to now Uganda with what's happening with Bobby Wine. We witnessed what happened in the 80s in the Southern Africa region where Angola and Mozambique and even Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, they all had violent revolutions. These were military operations that went on to free those African countries from the yoke of in that case, apartheid, which is synonymous with white supremacy, and was definitely oppressive as hell. So we know that the way out of the challenges, the most significant challenges for the African continent are definitely through revolution. And this time is no different. We are looking at what's happening with this attack in Nigeria. If you pinpoint on a map where that attack took place, it is so close to the border of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso that you understand the confluence of those countries coming together. And right there in the closest possible places where this attack took. So it was a signal to those countries in the Sahel that don't be surprised, you may have missiles raining down on you next. That is an affront to every Black person in the world. That is an affront to every liberated, liberation thinking African in Africa, certainly on the continent. And Africa has to realize that unlike Libya and unlike some of the other offensives that have taken place across Africa in the last 30, 40 years, Africa now has a different strategy, and they're in a different place. They've got more support internationally, and it is not just from China and Russia, it's from India, it's from other African states, it's from other parts of the world. A lot more of Europe is even supportive of Africa. Latin America is supportive of Africa. And this movement is getting ready to click into high gear. Donald Trump's the perfect foil because he's such an ass and such an idiot that he becomes the face of imperialism in Africa. And he's already the face of imperialism to everybody else around the world.
Dr. White, as we see the
Yes.
Dr. White, as we see the aggressive onslaught of imperialism attacking Venezuela, attacking Africa and the Sahel states through this ruse around Muslims are killing Christians. We've heard this before, right? And we heard it in Darfur in 2005, and it was a lie. Also, what I'd like for you to do is to connect Venezuela, the ultimate invasion that's going to take place over there, and we're hoping for a negative outcome for the United States. If you go on the ground over there, they will send you back in bags. This will happen in Vietnam. But as Venezuela and the Sahel states, the attack on Nigeria, I want you to connect what happened also last week, a big announcement coming out of Tel Aviv in so-called Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu recognizing Somaliland as a country, as a sovereign country, which nobody else has done yet around the globe. Look for some others to follow. But do you think this is a proxy from the United States to set up more military bases there? We know that Israel and the United States cousins, that they want to take control of some strategic trade routes that goes right through that region.
Absolutely, Brother Malik. You hit it right on the head. It's no more than setting up proxy areas, militarism for trade and intervention. Netanyahu, he has been crisscrossing the African continent, asking and soliciting support for his genocidal war against Palestinians, giving money, even paying soldiers from East Africa, North Africa, Central Africa, and throughout the continent to join in with the Israeli government to continue the onslaught against the Palestinians. So this is no more than a ruse. This whole element of recognition is no more than a show to get support for him. We should not be fooled by him. We should not be fooled by the United States with this, because as Brother Arthur stated earlier, it's no more than an attempt to continue American hegemony and a dominance. The problem is that it's not working because the world begins to see this. The issue, however, that is allowing them to kind of prolong it in a little bit is, again, from my standpoint, is the lethargic nation status of the African states to respond immediately to this. What I mean by that, let's go back to Venezuela. Arthur was talking about military action and violence. Venezuela, the president there has mobilized the citizens. All the citizens are ready for conflict. He has also worked with the Chinese and the Russians, in which they have given them supersonic weapons that can be fitted with nuclear heads to strike in minutes to the United States. All right, the Africans, they must also begin to follow certain types of ideas and directives, like this.
Yeah, you're breaking up.
If they are going to be considered, if it's not done, no matter what we say, it's not going to mean much of anything. All right. So again, Israel and the United States can only do this if we as Africans still give them a carte blanche, a wink and a smile, and thank you, hoping to get something. There's something that we have to look at with the psychology of the African. All right. The African as a group, They have self-esteem. They feel good about themselves, but they lack the element of bravery, all right, to fight back. African Americans, we may not have this self-esteem because we don't know where we come from and our background and so forth, but the African American and the African in the West have the bravery. Very interesting.
Bravery by letting dogs and water holes take us down in the 1960s, a bunch of cowards who followed Dr. King. What do you say about this?
Well, yeah, I just think
everybody was like that, Brother Malik. You know that the Deacons for Defense, right? The Deacons for Defense and Robert Williams, all right? And Malcolm, all right? And the
well, listen, what it goes back to is that by nature, African people are much more, there's much more humility. There's much more kindness. If you ask Brother Scurv, they're in Ghana, what is the demeanor of the people that he runs into every day? And he can attest. I thought the Ghanaian people were the most kind people I have ever met anywhere on the planet. These people are just, they're just giving, they're just really giving people. They're really loving, giving people. And I found that in South Africa, I found it in Zimbabwe, I found it all over the continent. Africans are a different, we're cut from a different cloth. And we think about humanity, we think about our humanity, we think about the humanity of others before we want to resort to defending ourselves and being aggressive with people. That's to a fault, that's to a fault. So I don't think that we can characterize it as being cowardly or being, having any lack of a sense of bravery. We know that from our own natures. The four of us sitting here and our audience listening, we will kick your behind. We don't have no problem doing that. If you provoke and you push us to do that, come on, it's the only thing is that we are trying to reach a level of sensibility, civility, and compromise with those people around us. But that time is not, it's past. It really is for this particular situation. When it comes to our land, our resources, we have to understand that we are going to have to secure them by any means necessary. And we're going to have to secure them now because evidently and obviously other people outside the continent are very hell-bent on continuing to keep us under a system of dominance. So we definitely have to fight back. I do want to say one more thing about the Nigerian attack. It was very cowardly for Nigeria to be complicit and allow that particular attack to happen. It had to happen with the consent of Tinubu and some of his generals, and who turned around and acted like they didn't know what was going on. They knew exactly what was going on. You don't just you don't just let that kind of thing happen. You have to have some complicity, and it's unfortunate that they've opened the gates to American intervention into northern Nigeria, which again can be the perfect staging area for their attacks on Burkina Faso and Mali and Niger. And that's really what they want. They want to try and interdict.
Brother Hart.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Brother White.
What's your assessment of the African Union and ECOWAS being virtually quiet, even congratulatory the United States for their actions?
Well, again, I think that's a huge mistake on their part. You don't invite a wolf into your house and then sit there and start bringing out the puppy biscuits and start giving them to them. It's really tantamount, to feeding this animal that you've let in. Trump and what is going on with the State Department, backed by the Zionists. They have a very persistent plan and scheme. If you look at the greater Israel map, that takes in a significant part of Africa, and they want to use that to capture all of the Arab land, the Suez Canal, and control. And Netanyahu thinks that's just perfectly fine. We're not going to have any, nobody's going to object to us doing it. Africa has to be a key objector to that kind of land grab that Israel is in the process of trying to manipulate and scheme on. Or I should say Netanyahu. I don't think most people in the state of Israel are even involved. I think a lot of them are clueless as to what his schemes and his ideas are. But most of Africa, on the other hand, has to be and has to grow to understand that you've got to fight and defend and draw a line in the sand and protect your territory. And I think that's where Traoré and Assimi Goïta and Chiani have moved in Niger and Guinea-Bissau and Mali to protect and defend at least their part of Africa, giving us a kind of behind the front lines, so to speak, free zone in Africa. And the West is going to try and break that up as much as they possibly can. So
we're going to come back on the other side to talk about the African leaders and what is the next move of the West. And one of the things here at the Muslim Street, I think that we've kind of carved out in the sand, at least, forward thinking. Thinking that this is a chess game. The West makes their move. We are endeared to the people that not only do we describe past and present, but also what our next moves are in order to defend against what their next moves are. Yeah, this is literally an informative show that we continue to expand and evolve. Now, so we're going to come up on the other side and talk about Ibrahim Traoré and the Sahel state leaders and what is the West next move. Before we do that, I want to take a break. We're produced by Lance Scurv out of Accra, Ghana. We're out of Muslim Street. You can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. Also across all social media at The Muslim Street. We're sponsored by Arabic Sofa. You can find them at arabicsofa.com and set off your study or your den or your room where you invite people to discuss important issues of the day or just relax with your family. If you mention the Muslim Street, you'll get we're getting some backdrop there. If you mention the Muslim Street, you'll get a $50 discount. In addition to that, you will also get a prayer rug shipped from you from Istanbul, Turkey. Customer service is great, guys. 3 or 4 days, business days. It'll be sitting in your living room where you can open this up and enjoy yourself. Also, mention the Muslim Street for free shipping. That's the arabicsofa.com. They have well over 30, 40 different options to go with your modern house here in the United States. ArabicSofa.com. I want to thank them for being on board with the Muslim Street. So, Art and Dr. White, I have Lance, for some reason, I have lost visual. So I'm going to ask Dr. White until I get visual back to kind of jump in.
Yeah, you froze up on this side, but I can still see you. Yeah, you're good now, Malik.
No. I've lost visual on my side. So if Dr. White
okay.
Until
all right.
I get back visual, then I'll jump back in.
We're breaking up on my side, and language. Arthur, do you hear him okay?
Yeah, I can hear everyone.
So you follow through, because I'm breaking up with Brother Malik. I didn't hear the full question, so you go ahead if you heard him okay.
Okay, okay. Well, once again, we also had the attack on Benin that took place. And again, Benin supposedly, allegedly, was trying to move and mount their own coup to change the government there in Benin, and Nigeria was supposed to have sent forces in and put down Benin. Benin is right next to Nigeria, right across the border, and it's a little sliver of a country between Nigeria and Ghana and Togo. So they didn't have far to go, and they're still in that same vicinity of being on the border with Burkina Faso, which is immediately north of Ghana. And then you have Mali, which kind of wraps around Burkina Faso, and then Niger is directly north of Nigeria. So it's really all very tightly bunched territory, and it just really convenient. If you plan to mount a cross-border incursion into any one of the Sahel states, you would do it from the location of the attacks that took place on Christmas. It'd be the perfect location to do that from. How ironic, But this is how we see and understand that this is not only a strategic, but a military advancement and attack coming out of the White House, the State Department, and also the Knesset and a few other capitals. And I don't want to leave a lot of the Arab states out of this, because the UAE is really prosecuting the war in Sudan. They are absolutely financially responsible for the rapid deployment, or the rapid forces that are coming, that are fighting in Sudan. And this is again a travesty and a link that needs to be exposed also. And Kuwait, Qatar, and a couple of other countries are certainly fighting in this proxy war. Those states that have been created artificially to essentially be oil sheikdoms and just renegade kind of estates that are set up strictly for their financial structures.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah, no one's going to refer. No one's going to refer to the UAE, Dubai, and all that garbage over there as a Muslim country either. And anybody has visited that place will understand why.
Yeah, I'm not referring to them as Muslims.
And put it over in the desert.
Exactly.
In fact, it didn't even exist. As its current infrastructure, even to the 1980s. So, get this really back. Go ahead, Dr. White. Before I kind of.
I also want to say something that we may be overlooking, and that the eventual attack and the overthrow and to make Benin a proxy state is aligned to this concept that we call the white man's burden. And the white man's burden historically has been the case that their job is to civilize and to bring culture and religion to the uncivilized. Now, what is the national religion of Benin? It's voodoo. It's the birthplace of voodoo. And we have utilized. It's a terrible religion, there's devil worship and so forth. So therefore, you have to bring civilization there. And they always do that with military. Now, if you have a proxy person there that's going to allow that, he's going to eventually say, yes, we have to civilize, we have to get in line with true religion of Christianity.
Yeah, Dr. White, we lost him there.
Yeah, well, just picking up on his concerns about Benin. I think that Benin is a multicultural country. There are a lot of Muslims in Benin. There are certainly some Christians, and there are traditional African thought and African spirituality that's practiced. And I'm not going to be the one who's going to certainly jump on
I guess somebody
African
didn't like what I was saying.
spirituality. You dropped out, Brother White. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're talking about Benin.
So we cannot ignore the fact that religion and the military actions of imperialism works hand in hand. You see that. Then they will just actually go into the next state, as Brother Arthur stated. But it's a very simple but elaborate plan. And if we don't watch it and we don't analyze it correctly, this will be done right up under our noses. All right. I mean, for example, like in Haiti, they argue that, the reason why Haiti is at a state as it is, and many Haitians even say it, is because they rejected so-called Christianity, ignoring the fact that it was the Voodoo Revolution that ultimately was utilized to get Napoleon and the French out. And we have seen this movement throughout the Caribbean as well as throughout the Americas. But they will utilize this whole element demonizing the culture, the religion of Benin, and they will juxtapose that with the Islamic cultures in other areas of West Africa as an excuse to use military might to overthrow regime change and to create or support their proxies. That's something I think that we need to look at.
Yeah, something to consider, and that gives us a good segue into the last segment, and that is what we raised the question of how do we warn the people from the perspective of the Muslim street. And I'm going to bring this up because we have to understand domestically the counterintelligence program, as well as internationally the CIA, these and the company, these wild figures are at foot, right? So what did we learn from the past? We learned in the assassination and overthrow of the Congo and Patrice Lumumba by the CIA. We learned Amilcar Cabral. That's why he's dead. We learned Steve Biko. We learned about Thomas Sankara in the late 1980s, assassinated by the CIA. So what is the play on the rise of the Sahel states, particularly its central figure, Ibrahim Traoré, and the CIA's plot to assassinate him? Now, and I want to couch this before I turn this over to Art to answer first, and then Dr. White, please chime in. I want to couch this in the last time that we saw a unified front of revolutionaries oppose the West. When did we see it? We saw it in the late 2000s, 2007, 2008, even a little earlier than that, but it culminated in the death of Hugo Chavez. Now, Hugo Chavez of Venezuela, he claimed as he was dying with cancer that the CIA had poisoned him with cancer, and about 4 or 5 other heads of states in Central and South America who was opposing the imperialist missions of not only the Bush administration, but also the Obama administration. And everybody knows what that list is. Go research it. That all of these heads of states in Central and South America all came down with cancer at the same time. It killed Hugo Chavez. Now, I say this to say, and I want us to jump into that because we got to look ahead. We haven't seen political assassinations domestically from the United States since probably the last hit that was government that led, a state led hit, and that was on Fred Hampton in December of 1969, right? State sponsored. They knew, and they came away with their homework, that if there's a political assassination, then the leader that we tried to cut out becomes a martyr, and his movement lives beyond the revolution. It happened in the case of King. It happened in the case of Malcolm. It happened in the case of Medgar Evers, right? Now, so Chavez, he claimed that the CIA used some other different type of technology. People thought he was crazy. But let me set this up before I turn it over to both of you. There was a man by the name of Dr. Brian Swan. He enters the United States in the early 1970s from Russia. The Soviet Union. In order to train the CIA, the KGB, in bed with the CIA, they were really not enemies, right? They were striking big wheat bargains during the Nixon and the Reagan administration, while the farmers in Iowa were starving. So Dr. Swan enters the United States on behalf of the KGB in the early 1970s to train the CIA on a technology called remote viewing, where they're able to project and pass excuse me, what was that? They're able to project and pass. We got some. Hit the mute button there. All right. They're able. Yeah, we're getting some feedback. Just really wanted to finish this point.
Somebody has to turn the volume down. I think
So Dr. Swan trained the CIA on the technology of remote viewing, and they were able to pass actually energies as well as diseases through into future over technology, right? Electromagnetic waves. Literally, this was taking place. They were trained to do this, right? So 5 heads of states, all in Central and South America in the late 2000s, who were opposing imperialism, Western imperialism, particularly George Bush and Obama's aggression, came down with cancer. So I say this in this duality of how are they going to come after, meaning the CIA, how are they going to come after Ibrahim Traoré and the leaders of this Sahel states in this movement that has arisen on the African continent, in order to overthrow it. They cannot use what is blatant, these political hits that they did in the past lately with Thomas Sankara, but also in light of the popularity of Ibrahim Traoré is widespread. So if they kill him, then any of those resolutions that they will sign in the UN won't mean a damn. Okay, so I just want to throw that out to the Muslim Street Art, as well as Dr. White. Looking forward, how do we warn the people of the next move of the Western imperialists vis-a-vis the Sahel states?
Well, I think we're doing it right now. That's what the Muslim Street does. It warns, it educates, and it deals with history, and it helps people to understand what a serious situation we're in at this point. We can't cower. We can't be afraid that our leaders are going to be killed because we've always known since the days of slavery that our leaders are targets, and they will continue to be as we go forward until we get to a point where we have secured enough land and enough territory to insulate our leadership from the exposure to these outside forces. You can't just go into Washington and find Donald Trump and do him some harm. You can't go into Russia and find Putin and do him some harm, nor can you do that in China. And I'm just making a simple point that mass and the ability to have people around your leaders is the buffer zone that's important. Right now in Burkina Faso, Traoré's people have amassed around him, and they create this insulative additional security that is necessary to protect him as a leader. And hopefully they do. Hopefully they can keep him safeguarded. But I'm sure if he falls, there will be another person in Burkina Faso who will pick up and they will have gotten enough from Traore's movements and what he's done over the last few months to carry that forward. We look at Venezuela. I mean, Maduro. I mean, he did the same thing as Allende was advised in Chile from Fidel Castro to arm your people, arm all of them, make all of your people soldiers, give them all guns, and let them protect the revolution, let them protect the entire country, the mass of the country. That's how these movements were accomplished. That's how China was won. That's how French Revolution was won. That's how the American Revolution was won. That's how Russia moved into its prominence of today. Africa needs to drop the silliness and the insanity of colonial borders, band together, and understand that we are one people. And until we realize and move and act as one people, we're going to be threatened to the hilt.
Dr. White, what's our next move?
First of all, I believe that the United States will utilize what I call the Noriega-Gaddafi model. It never changes. That is, first of all, you try to assassinate the character. Then later on, you try to be friends with them. You talk about, oh, you're doing a great job. Just a few more things, you can have a real democratic state. You try to win them in so they can drop their guard. Then at the same time, they begin to argue that the leadership in Panama and Libya was autocratic. That's what they're doing right now in reference to Ibrahim. They say that, well, he has cracked down on homosexuality. That is, he is not having he's violating human rights. They're saying that he is doesn't allow dissent, i.e., that means that he's not having democracy and free elections. They're also saying that he has created a system of harsh rule. That means, i.e., that he is punishing his enemies. And they will line up in this manner. And before you know it, they will go in to do these things as they did to Noriega and Colonel Gaddafi. The people drop their guards. They will create dissent within their ranks. All right. And then these underlining or these underpinning military leaders will turn them over. The question is, are the Africans willing to see this and willing to protect it? Because one thing about imperialists, that is, their strategy really doesn't change and their markers don't change. What changes are the individuals, the governments that they're focusing on. They're the ones who would change and begin to say, oh, the Americans, the Europeans, they're not so bad. They're really nice people. That's a nice government that really loves us. And before you know it, you will sell your own down the river. That's how it is. I mean, you look at it right now. That's taking place. And if we don't do anything about it, it's going to happen. And we're going to be talking about this in a couple of years. It's terrible what they did to Brother Ibrahim.
Yeah.
We don't have any friends.
That's right. We don't have any friends. And like you said, Brother Arthur and Brother Malik, the Africans got to wise up and they got to be proactive in defending their own, or they're going to do to Ibrahim what they did to Kwame Nkrumah, what they did to Colonel Gaddafi, and what they have done they did to Noriega, and what they tried to do to Fidel Castro and several others.
Yeah, so just for the listening audience, I don't want you to think I was just babbling out of my mouth. I have 3,000 books in my library. I researched all this. In fact, I was 1 degree of separation from Dr. Swan down here in Clearwater, Florida, where he owned a company called Digital Lightwave, which went boom, boom in the mid-90s as part of that tech advancement.
We live in a
Wait. What I say is absolutely the truth. We'll put the links in the bio of the Muslim Street, particularly as it relates to Hugo Chavez and his claims about the CIA, a list of all of the presidents who came down with cancer in Central and South America at the same time. We will also put the links in the bio so you can go do research on the CIA and remote viewing vis-a-vis Dr. Swan and the information that I gave here earlier. Dr. Brian Swan, make sure that Lance, we put his bio up there. He's dead now. In fact, I know people who knew him. All right. So, and that's happenstance in the business world, not on the side of him training the CIA in the early 1970s and during the Nixon administration, coming from the KGB. It's on and popping. What we're saying here is that we have to think ahead of them. We have to think steps 3 and 4 steps ahead of our enemy, though he's planning 4 and 5 steps ahead of us. All right, that deal that Netanyahu did down in Somaliland, with recognizing them as a sovereign nation, didn't just happen. He got approval from the White House. It's a proxy move. They do this stuff all the time, and that stuff has been in the planning months and months, probably years. All right, so. Again, we are a early warning signal for the liberation movement, for the Pan-African movement, in order to get you the necessary information so that you can develop, you can build movements, you can organize around, so that we can have tools to defeat imperialism. Because you are not going to defeat imperialism. You're not going to defeat worldwide white supremacy by doing this, running your mouths. You have to be organized. Right? Whether you organize underground or whether you organize over the ground. And we already know the people that the Western imperialism and white supremacy scales are not the people that you need to be organizing with. If you see too much of them, you know they ain't doing nothing. Right? So, Art, I want to leave you with a few minutes to kind of respond before we allow Dr. White to jump back in.
Well, you know, again, like I said, we have no friends. We have to realize that. Dr. Clark reminded us of that until, you know, he left us. But we also can't not be afraid, again, to worry too heavily about the loss of leadership. We have to have a cadre of leaders at the secondary level who think exactly the same way as those people that you are targeting. And in fact, that will diminish the effectiveness of targeting our leaders. What Maduro is doing now in Venezuela, as I mentioned earlier, by arming all of the people, by getting all of this support. Yes, he's brought in hypersonic missiles, and you know he can mount a pretty serious defense against the U.S. forces. They may lose that battle, but they are going to do some significant damage if that is unleashed. I hate to see that spin out of control because it can turn into World War III. You know, that's what we're playing with now, as opposed to what we were going through in the 80s. When Southern Africa was virtually eliminated or liberated, rather, and they did not have the support of some of the countries that are available to Traoré and Assimi Goïta and Tiani in the Sahel. So it's a new day. It's a new situation. We need the masses. That's how you defeat this. You unify. We beat it through unity. We unify as much as we can and not allow Somalilands and Kush and Biafras, and because they're going to fractionalize us every opportunity that they can get. That pits one against the other. So you see the makings of that. That's what we have to resist. Foundational blacks against the Africans and the Pan-Africanists. I mean, this is all being orchestrated, and a lot of people are taking the bait, but it is through unity that we win. It's through unity that we achieve the.
Yeah, we got 30 seconds, Dr. White.
Yeah, I agree with Art completely. I want Lance to say a couple of words, because earlier in our discussion with Art, I made mention that the Africans are not as brave as they want, and Brother Art said, well, Lance should say something. And Lance is one of the toughest gangbangers from the Bronx, who now lives in Ghana. So I'd just like him to say just a couple of words on this.
First of all, Lance is from Harlem, and he ain't no gangbanger. He's a lover.
He's hardcore. Okay, Brother Lance.
It's a dual occupancy. But anyway, case in point, Dr. White called me randomly, and I happened to be down in one of the markets, and it was a video call. It wasn't planned. And he saw the love that I received, and he also received the love, right? And they're still asking for you when they want to know when you're coming in. But nonetheless, don't let the Ghanaian men, their laid-back demeanor, fool you, because it can go quick from 0 to 100 in 0.3 seconds. Don't do that. And without even requesting, nobody's going to whip out a situation with them. Over some issue with any one of them, if you have an issue with any one of them, you're going to find 20, 30, 50 of them standing around looking at you, ready to jump in. That's not their initial demeanor. At the same token, if you need help, you'll see 20, 30, 50, or even 100 around you. You decide how things go. See? When I walk, Malik has called me, I'm free. Count my money, give some, buy some stuff, I feel safe. And even me, as a person who they can see when I speak that I'm obviously from America, the love runs deep. I take my time and go to the village, in the town, and hang out all day sometime, just talking and vibing. I'm accepted. Ever had this feeling walking the streets of America, where when you go to the ATM, you have to have your head on the swivel and make sure. I love my people in America. I love the land. I don't love the system. See? I don't like how things run. I'll keep it short. I'm not going to complain about America. Why would I complain about hell when I'm in heaven? Right?
I thank Lance for that.
Thank you.
That tidbit. And, I told you Lance was a lover. Didn't I tell you, Dr. White, that was all lover stuff.
Yes, sir.
But he said, don't get it twisted. He was a former world-class bodybuilder. You got to throw that picture up on the screen sometime, Lance. And
all right.
We're gonna close this out. You guys next week.
You.
And again, some of the names I mentioned who all came down with cancer in 2010, 2011. Hugo Chavez of Venezuela, Cristina Fernandez of Argentina, also the head of state, Paraguay, Fernando Lugo, Brazil's Dilma Rousseff, and the former Brazilian leader, Luis da Silva, all came down with cancer, all anti-imperialist, all anti-American at the same time. CIA plot, make no mistake about it. Hugo Chavez dead because of this. How would they make their next move? This is a lesson. We'll come back with the next show, and maybe we can deal with that from the audience. Go do your homework, folks. Go do some reading of some books. Do some research. Do some panel discussions. Old school. We need to return back to the 1970s and 1980s and 1990s when we were supporting Black bookstores, buying books, collaborations that were forming and developing. That was where the leadership came up out of. And that's how we learned how to make the next move. Again, for the Muslim Street, Art Mobley, National Association of Black Journalists, along with Dr. Viper Issa White, author of Blacklisted, The Price for Speaking the Truth. I am Malik Aziz with the Muslim Street. We'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes.